I literally just filmed this whole video only to realise that I hadn't turned the camera on. Okay. Hello, it's Jeta, and today I'm finally sharing all the books that I read in 2021. I've been looking forward to filming this video literally all year, and it's finally time. This year I read 50 books again. I did set the goal of reading 65, but I didn't manage to, but it's okay. So I think I'm going to start off with some analytics. So I track all of the books I read on Goodreads. This year I'm also going to be tracking them on Storygraph as well, just because I really like that they give you lots of analytics about the books that you read. So as I said, I read 50 books, and this year I read 14,575 pages, which is, I think, 2,000 more than last year. So even though I read the same amount of books, I did read longer books. My average book length was 291 pages. I think last year it was like 245 or something. So yeah, so the first book I read was Delirium by Lauren Oliver. It is set in this dystopian world where love is declared a disease, and when everyone turns 18 they have to go through this procedure called the cure. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. Then I read Bullet in the Brain by Tobias Wolfe. It is this extremely strange short story about a man who is queuing at a bank, and then there is a robbery. The characters and the events are so bizarre, but it is written in such an interesting way. I think it's probably one of the best short stories I've read. After, I read Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, just the most wholesome novel I think to ever exist. I watched the new Little Women adaptation during Christmas time, and that was also incredible. Then I read Pandemonium and Requiem, the second two in the trilogy. Then I read I Think We Are Alone by Sally Abbott, which is a play about human connection. Then I read another play, Colder Than Here by Laura Wade. This actually broke me. It is about grief before someone's actually died. It focuses on a family, and the mother has been diagnosed with bone cancer. And it's basically just about how the family come to terms with that. Then I read The Mask of Red Death by Edgar Allan Poe. It is this gothic, scary short story about an epidemic. It was very strange reading it during the pandemic. It was the first piece of writing I've read by Edgar Allan Poe, and I have to say I wasn't very gripped, but I don't think I've read enough of his work to really make a judgment. Then I read Shatter Me, Unravel Me, Ignite Me, Restore Me, Defy Me, Imagine Me by Tahira Mafi. This series I read during the January-February lockdown, in a period of time where I was feeling very down and very low and really lonely. So on one hand, it was perfect escapism, so I do have to give this series that. The plot is quite interesting, and some of the characters are really likeable. However, the writing in this series is so bad, and I really don't like criticizing authors, but this series actually made me question how on earth it even got published in the first place. To explain why the writing is so bad, there are just similes and metaphors thrown in every 5 lines for no apparent reason. And they are bad for 2 reasons. One, because half the time they don't actually make sense. And secondly, they are just so cliche that I literally cringed while reading them. So to give you an example, I am an old creaky staircase when I wake up. Or, my mouth is sitting on my kneecaps. Or, my stomach drops onto my knees. I think that's all you need to know about the writing. Also, another thing is that books 4, 5 and 6 actually ruined the series for me. It feels like you're reading fan fiction, but the author wrote it. And honestly, if you are going to read this series, just stop at book 3. It makes perfect sense as a trilogy and doesn't even end on a cliffhanger, so you're honestly just better off stopping there, because I wish that I could just delete books 4, 5 and 6 from my mind. Okay, enough of me criticizing that series though. Then I read Heartstopper Volume 1, 2 and 3. It is just the most wholesome LGBT romance graphic novel series, and I really enjoyed reading them. I especially liked Volume 3 because it started talking about mental health issues, and I just thought that they were explored really well. Then I read Things I Know to Be True by Andrea Bevell. It is a play about family and complex relationships, growing up and being in this strange limbo between not quite being an adult but also not being a child. And I actually used the last monologue from this play for my GCSE drama course, and yeah, it's just incredible. Then I read This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay, which is the diaries of a junior doctor. So enlightening about what it's really like to work in the NHS, and after reading this I have a newfound respect for all healthcare workers. Then I read Histories All You Left Me by Adam Silvera, another book which absolutely broke me. And every time I think about it, I still get really sad. You might have heard of They Both Die at the End. I think this one is even more sad, and I actually preferred this one to They Both Die at the End. Then I read Poems for the End of the World by Katie Wisma. At the time that I read this poetry anthology, I really enjoyed it. But I think I was feeling kind of a bit sad, so I related to the poems a little bit more. It was my first time reading poetry without punctuation or capital letters, and I did like it to some extent. It felt like you were just reading the flow of someone's thoughts. I think if I read this poetry anthology again, I wouldn't have rated it so highly, because I've read so much more poetry now and I have more preferences and opinions on what I think is good poetry, but I do think poetry is just so difficult to judge, so yeah. Then I read The Cruel Prince, The Wicked King and the Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. I really enjoyed the series. I did think that the first one was a bit slow, but the second one was even better, and then the third one was even better, so yeah, these are actually the first proper fantasy books that I read, and it was a very good introduction into the genre. Then I read Horseradish by Lemony Snicket, probably the most bizarre book I think I've ever read. It starts off with this story, and then there are 13 chapters filled with little quotes or thoughts, basically that link to the short story at the beginning of the book. Very strange, as I said, but I did really like the form of the book. Then I read The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. I actually didn't like this book very much. I really liked the descriptions at the very beginning, but then it just felt so slow until the end where it kind of picked up. I was expecting it to be a lot better because I'd heard so many good reviews, but I just really didn't enjoy it. On the other hand, then I read The Midnight Library by Matt Hague, and I loved this book. It's about a woman called Nora who commits suicide and then wakes up in this library where every single book is a life that she could have lived if she had made a different choice. I think it's just filled with so much wisdom. It's kind of like a self-help book. And I know that some people do think that Matt Hague's metaphor is too oversimplified for the complexities of depression. But when I read it, I was feeling very low and lost, and the book really helped me to regain a sense of myself, and so for that I obviously gave it 5 stars. Then I read The Shadows Between Us. I don't think you could find a more average fantasy romance book if you tried. Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. Heartstopper Volume 4. I should have listened to the trigger warnings before reading this book because I was actually very triggered from reading it, and it meant that I just didn't enjoy it as much as the other 3, which I'm really annoyed about, so I think I will definitely have to come back to it at another time to fully appreciate the story. Then I read 2 picture books. Please don't judge me. We were getting rid of some of my old childhood books, and so I read Angelina's Birthday and Olivia, which were 2 of my favourite picture books as a child, but I still included them because they are still books. Then I read The Vile Village by Lemony Snicket with my sisters, Shadow and Bone, Siege and Storm, Ruin and Rising, all by Leigh Bardugo. I have a whole video about this trilogy, so if you want to know more, then go and watch that one. Then I also read Six of Crows, which I do think is better than the Shadow and Bone trilogy. The novel is just more complex. Then I read Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. I fell in love with this book. I didn't like it so much at the beginning, but the more I read, the more I fully appreciated the rich complexity of this novel. I had to read it for A-level English literature, and a lot of my friends really didn't like it, but I just couldn't get enough of Thomas Hardy's writing. Then I read Crooked Kingdom, the second in the duology. Then I went through a little bit of an adult romance enemies to lovers phase. So I read The Spanish Love Deception, The Kiss Quotient, and The Love Hypothesis. The Spanish Love Deception is my favourite out of these three. Yeah, they're just so indulgent and they're just good for your soul. Then I read A Room with a View by E.M. Forster, another book I had to read for A-level English literature. I did quite like it. It kind of reads like a 1900s speech read in a way. High Windows by Philip Larkin, a poetry anthology. It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. A Streetcar Named Desire by Tennessee Williams. The Mistletoe Motive. The Night in Question by Tobias Wolfe, another short story which I really enjoyed. And finally, The Comfort Book by Matt Hague. It really is a comfort book filled with thoughts and quotes and lists and history, and it is just incredible. So then I thought I would rank the best books of 2021. In first place is The Midnight Library by Matt Hague. In second place is Colder Than Here by Laura Wade. In third place is Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. Then History Is All You Left Me by Adam Silvera. And finally, It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. So yeah, those are all the books that I read in 2021. Do let me know down below in the comments what your favourite reads were, and I hope you have a lovely day. Bye!